WeInfuse Podcast, episode number 79. Welcome to the WeInfuse Podcast. My name is Amanda Brummitt. In every episode, we give you a seat at the table as we talk to Infusion Center owners, operators, and experts so that you can get the insight you need to run a thriving practice. In today's episode, we talk with Sury Gupta, co-founder and chief technology officer of TrialIQ. Sury shares how TrialIQ embeds clinical research directly into the point of care, automating trial matching, patient identification, site readiness, and physician education, so community practices and infusion centers can become trial-ready sites. He also walks us through TrialIQ's new partnership and integration with WeInfuse and how it opens a new service line for infusion providers without disrupting their existing clinical operations. Sury, thank you so much for being here today. Could you start by just telling us who you are, giving us your background?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So my name is Sury Gupta. I'm the co-founder and CTO of TrialIQ. My background's in software engineering. I have a computer science degree from the University of Delaware, both bachelor's and my master's. Go Blue Hens for everyone who knows mascot of Delaware. It's not a given, but no. But I've been in startups for the last I would say about 10 years in a couple different spaces. Originally in building safety and security. That's a startup I had in college. We were able to do a lot with helping firefighters and first responders to access key data for building infrastructure, and we were able to participate in Capital Factory and Mass Challenge through those opportunities. And fortunately, after I graduated, I met Brian Zueben, who introduced me to the world of healthcare, and so I worked for him for the last 5-6 years until we built TrialIQ together.
Wow. Okay, we have to go back. So you started a company while you were in college that actually fixed problems and helped people?
That was the intent. We built a software that used 3D models to give first responders access to, in-depth building models.
Wow.
So if you have a fire or a active shooter situation, they had instead of just black and white floor plans that they're used to, they have a full model on their laptop of the current state of the building and, where everything is and everything like that. And, unfortunately, I think we weren't in a good position to execute on it, being kids and all.
Most college kids aren't.
Right. And then, with COVID and everything like that, I had to just pivot career-wise. And,
Sure.
fortunately, I ended up right after that, again, meeting Brian and getting into healthcare, which I'm very, very thankful for. And it's been a goal of mine to be able to use technology within healthcare and improve healthcare. I didn't go into the medical field myself, but obviously health is a universal truth. And I think being able to have some kind of impact or some kind of make a difference in some way, shape, or form, I think is very, very important to me.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm so glad you found your way into healthcare because we have lots of issues that we need smart people fixing. And sounds like you're up for the task. So I want to get into TrialIQ here in a minute. But before we do, I want you to kind of walk us through how you found yourself helping infusion centers become research ready. What challenges have you incurred?
Yeah, so I'll give the credit to Brian. Again, Brian's leaving for everyone who knows him, which is a lot of people. So I worked for him for Innovative Precision Health, which was a RWE focused startup. And then there was an opportunity to be able to run a couple trials through Brian's Infusion network. And with that, we were able to identify a lot of the challenges and a lot of the headaches involved with trying to run a trial in infusion centers and also just universally trying to run trials in general. And that's where I would say a lot of the inspiration for TrialIQ came about, was trying to make that simpler and reduce a lot of the barriers, both for infusion as well as community practices, to give access to patients that otherwise, are stuck going to academic centers and hospital systems. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but getting them access and awareness of clinical trials where they get care.
Sure. Yeah. If I can get care at my neighborhood infusion center and instead of having to drive into the city, figure out how to park, walk 3 buildings over, always a good thing. But yeah, that's generally a trade off. If you want to be part of a research study, you're not usually getting to do that in your neighborhood infusion center.
Right. Even though they have a lot of the capabilities. They have, motivated, very talented staff members and people who want to get into research, but they just don't know how to start or don't get the visibility they need to really get going. So that's one of the goals of Trial IQ is to help, again, alleviate some of those barriers and give those opportunities to those who are motivated and want to help their patients get access to that, you know, I don't want to say alternative care, but another care option.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So I understand that TrialIQ recently announced a partnership and integration with WeInfuse. And I'm so excited that you're here to tell us about it because, just kind of fun fact, a lot of times they don't send the engineer to do the podcast, but I'm so excited that you're here. So you can tell us how this works alongside the WeInfuse software platform for infusion providers.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, I'm very excited about this partnership. And from a technical perspective, it's very interesting to me because you can imagine there's a lot of inefficiencies in identifying patients for clinical trials. You have to go through
Sure.
medical records and chart notes and things like that. And that's one of those barriers that you'd spend hours and hours trying to find the right trials. And then once you find the right trials, you have to spend hours and hours evaluating the patients. So with the technology stack that WeInfuse has, as well as with TrialIQ's technology, I think we can make that process a lot more efficient and a lot cleaner and present those opportunities to the infusion operators, to the physicians, to the patients in a much more cleaner and concise way. And, you know, enable them, we call TrialIQ the enablement layer to enable them to get involved in research, even if it's just identifying care options for the patient, all the way up to becoming a PI and hosting a trial at the site itself.
Okay, that sounds like really interesting software. Can you give me an example of how it might work in an actual infusion center?
Yeah. So first we would, make an engagement with the infusion center. We would, our customer success team would work with the infusion center to understand the patient population, obviously get the integration done between ourselves and WeInfuse, pull the patient information, work with the staff to understand what the capabilities of the infusion center are, whether it's a embedded infusion center or a standalone site. What procedures are they able to facilitate? Who are the staff members? What are their backgrounds? What are their capabilities? And that all becomes, a almost like a site profile on the platform where we would essentially use that information and within the platform itself, nothing ever leaves the platform, but we would use that to identify opportunities for the patient populations that are best matched. So we have an AI system that'll match against and it's all, compliant and secure and private. We have very strict guardrails on everything on that, especially when it comes to patient data. But
Sure.
we'll match the patient population and the infrastructure to active trials that are looking for those patients and infrastructure and present that to the infusion practice.
Mm,
And nothing happens without the infusion practices say so, but we have a dashboard, it's called trial discovery, where these opportunities are going to be presented. It'll tell you what the trial is, who the sponsor is, what the financial information is, who are the patients, how many patients, and it's up to the infusion practice if they want to opt in or not. So if they click opt in, that sends a message to the customer success person, and they'll help facilitate the relationship between that infusion center and the sponsor, site, CRO, whoever's on the other end. So we work as almost like a facilitator to repeat the phrase enabler to get the right people in the right places and make sure everything is data driven and they can be confident in going forward.
yeah, it's almost like a matchmaking service.
Yeah, almost.
So, and that is for patients that are our own existing patients, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then if there are patients out there that are participating in trials and need a location for an infusion, will it also send information that direction?
Yes, we're building out a pretty large footprint within community practices. So for them to be aware of infusion practices or infusion centers near them that, again, have these capabilities, have these staff members, have these experiences, for them to be able to almost tap into those resources, that is another, you're absolutely correct, big opportunity for established resource sites to be able to, you know, not borrow infrastructure, but expand infrastructure into infusion centers that are nearby.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that sounds really cool. and exciting for people to be able to offer that for their patients.
Yeah.
As you've been working through this process, what would you say has been your biggest light bulb moment about embedding clinical research into everyday infusion care?
I would say the biggest light bulb moment was that realization how underutilized infusion centers are within clinical care, because there's staff members that are very, highly trained. They work with
Yeah,
very, sometimes very sensitive patient populations. They have infrastructure, they have the capability to administer, and it's just a very obvious place, I would say, to do clinical research. But there's just not that going back to and there's a lot of recurring themes, but
hmm,
with visibility and access and just knowing where to start. So I'm happy that TrialIQ can provide that visibility and guidance and enablement for infusion practices, infusion centers, because ultimately, you're treating patients that want access to clinical research and
yeah,
they don't want to have to go to, very far distances or to, where they're not used to getting care.
right.
And so, like reducing those barriers of, identifying patients, identifying trials, making sure the infrastructure is visible to sponsors. That from a technological standpoint is relatively straightforward and easy for us to deliver on. But for an individual infusion center, when you're already, prioritizing patient care, you don't have the time or sometimes the wherewithal to go about and do this.
Sure.
So from a technology standpoint, that was sort of a light bulb moment of how we can use technology to be able to solve that problem and bring access and bring care to those patient populations and infusion centers.
Yeah. Well, and I would think that, or not, I would think, I know that a lot of these patients that we treat in infusion centers are living with fairly rare conditions. So I would think matching them to clinical trials manually would be extremely hard.
Exactly. Pharma companies spend huge amounts of money trying to identify and get in touch with these patients. And I would say, the use of technology and the use of, I would say, responsible healthcare data management, of course,
Yes,
abiding by
responsible.
all the rules and privacy and everything like that. But it does solve that issue of identifying and finding those patients and you know, educating them on these are the options available for you. If you're interested, great, fantastic. We'll connect you with, site sponsor, whoever's on the other side. If you're not, no harm, no foul. At least you know that this was an option available to you versus just not being aware at all.
Yeah, that's really neat. This product sounds incredible and like it could add another service line for infusion centers and be really helpful for patients. But I'm curious, how much does it cost?
So the cost of it is free, because of our partners with WeInfuse and, us trying to bring these opportunities to infusion centers and their patients. We've designed it in a way that the sponsors and CROs being either contract research organizations or clinical research organizations, their funding essentially helps facilitate our ability to give the software away because we don't want that cost to be a barrier, as well as we want to give infusion centers the ability to tap into a new revenue stream, as well as obviously care options for their patients.
Wow, that is incredible. So, if people are hearing about this and they're excited about it, it's already built into WeInfuse, it's free. What else do they need to do to get started?
Yeah, so, of course, there's going to be some legal paperwork to sign. So
Sure.
just making sure everything is above board and, with patient privacy and HIPAA and all that. So, but after that, it's pretty straightforward. Our integration with WeInfuse makes it a very quick turnaround on the data side, as well as with our customer success team. They'll work with your staff and help to onboard them, let them know what they need to know, identify opportunities, and give you access to the platform. And that's really it. And then you log into the platform, you can go into trial discovery, see what trials are matched to your patients and to your center, be able to manage, actively enrolling trials, being able to manage the, site infrastructure. We also have a marketplace in which if there's any opportunities to expand your capabilities or connect with new partners, that's all in one platform. So it should be relatively quick, couple weeks max. Of course, it can vary depending on some complexities here and there, but a couple weeks is our target to get a new client onboarded.
Wow, that's quick. And Suri, how do they find you guys?
Our email, if they want to reach out to us, is info@trialiq.ai, or they can go to our website, trialiq.ai, and fill out their contact form, and somebody will get back to them in the next, within a day.
Perfect. Thinking through all that you're seeing, all that you're doing in the infusion space, what are you most excited about right now in the industry?
I would say in the industry in general, I think the ability to use technology in ways, especially now versus 5 years ago or 10 years ago, in ways that were almost impossible.
Mm,
So, for example, we, are a big proponent of AI. We use AI to, you know, it doesn't touch or manage any of the actual patient data. We, have a strict,
sure.
guardrail against that. But being able to process protocols and being able to process information and help us with that matchmaking at scale, I think is something that, this company would not have been possible 5 years ago. So because of that, we're able to use that and leverage that in ways that ultimately have you know, a tangible impact. You're not just generating video or, writing an email or creating a social media post with AI. This is something that I think directly translates into better access to care and better education for patients for trial opportunities, and helps solve, problems on the pharma side, helps solve problems on the operator side. So I think that's what I'm most excited about. And we're just at the beginning stages of it. And I think as this technology improves and expands and it becomes more widely adopted, there's, outside of Trial IQ, even there's going to be tremendous opportunities for improving patient lives. And I would say, we have I would like to think a small part of that, but I think that's what I'm excited to be able to facilitate, at least a small part of that. But I think outside of that, that's what excites me about the industry, is how much it can be improved and how much it can be better.
Yeah, it's definitely a noble outlook on it and really exciting. Also, just for fun, since you happen to be a software engineer and you mentioned AI, what are you playing with AI just for fun, not to solve the world's problems? Unless that's
For
what you're
fun,
doing for fun.
I mean, I'm moving into a new apartment next week, so it's helping me, identify where my furniture can fit, what is the best furniture, designing my living room and my bedroom and things like that. So
Nice.
still, I guess, a little utilitarian, but it does a better job than I could.
Right. And what is your preferred platform for that?
I don't know if Claude will give me money, but Claude.
Really? Okay, so when I had it redesign my backyard, Claude and Gemini both tanked, and Claude is my normal go-to, but ChatGPT sort of ruled the design space. So your prompting's probably better than my prompting.
I mean, I even just like a month ago to now, and I think it's across all of the, AI platforms, it's just moving at an exponential scale. And,
Yes,
you know, something that something that AI would struggle with 3 months ago is cake for it now.
totally.
And you can imagine, 3 months from now and a year from now and 5 years from now, it's gonna be interesting to say the least.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, back to infusion. If you had just one last piece of advice to give to our listeners, what would it be?
I would say, especially with, the rise of technology and its capabilities, be open, be curious, be experimental, try things. Don't be afraid to, if it falls flat, fine, you learn something. But if it works well, then, expand upon it. I think there's lots of, to address what I was saying before, there's lots of opportunities and there's lots of momentum, and getting started is really the biggest thing, and being open. And I would say that's the biggest advice.
Yeah, that is great advice. Well, Suri, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking your talents and putting it into this industry that needs it so much. And thanks for sharing about Trial IQ.
Yeah, of course. Really thankful to be on the show with you. And I'm sure Brian is listening to this right now. Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me. And very excited for our partnership with WeInfuse and what the opportunities we have coming up.
Well, that was great information from Sury Gupta of TrialIQ about turning everyday infusion centers into research-enabled care environments and bringing clinical trials closer to the patients and communities they already serve. If you aren't familiar with WeInfuse, Rx Toolkit, and Infuse Track, I encourage you to schedule a test drive of all three and be sure to ask about TrialIQ while you're there. These tools can save you time and money in your practice while making infusions safer for patients. My name is Amanda Brummitt, and we'll catch you in the next episode.